Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories began.
Hello, diary listeners. This is going to be a special podcast. I want to note the day. It is Sunday, February 19th, and happy Sunday to everyone. I am recording this special podcast because I have an announcement. I came to this during the week, and I feel like I have been pushed to this moment for a very long time now. Simply put, after today, this podcast is going to be pretty much a heavy concentration on my own journey from here on out. I will, of course, be fulfilling my promises to those that I have pre-recorded shows with. I owe it to them, and I owe it to the time that they have given this podcast to release their content and their experiences. That is so vital, and because of them and every diary entry that we've had here, I really couldn't have gotten to this point. So the reason why I am making a special podcast and I'm doing all this all is it's for a lot of reasons, and I'm hoping that I can talk about this well. But I mean, if you followed me for this long in podcast land and this podcast, you've seen a lot of evolutions, and I think by now you've gathered that this is a diary and a moving art piece. This is both supposed to be content to tell other people's stories, as well as my story, and hopefully through the sharing of professional experience, learning journeys, etc., we all get to rise together. And so this is a blatant book open diary entry and diary experience. Now, I guess the reason why I've reached this point is for a lot of reasons, and I want to communicate this with all of you because this has been a journey. And of course, as you document any journey, it's going to evolve, and the people who follow you or who listen to you are going to evolve with you. And I have been making some pretty crazy steps in my own life lately, but they started long before this podcast even was a thing. Long ago, and I know I've shared this before, but I'm hoping that I don't have to reiterate and repeat myself too much. But long ago, I had this notion, and this was back in the time when I was really getting a lot of therapy and really analyzing myself and trying very much so to stop cyclical insanity taking place in my life and things that I just did out of, I guess, like a toxic addiction to a rhythm and a way, and it just really wasn't good for me. I have a list of different mental illnesses that I grapple with, I think, but the most predominant and persistent one has been codependency. It's really stifled me, and it's weird because I've known about it and was diagnosed with it like when I first first came to therapy, which was, I don't know, like circa 2005. No, it might have been, I think it was before that. I think it might have been 2003, 2002, 2003, something like that. But in any event, I knew it right away. But as you can tell, knowing is just half the battle. And I've been battling this in my life ever since I understood what it was and learning about it. And, the first thing that you learn is that what you have a tendency to do as a codependent is seek out people that really make you feel good about yourself, because you, from your perspective, can isolate things that they need work on, and you can put yourself in a position to better them. And what this does is create this massive ego that really doesn't serve anything. And it like I'm admitting, it really, the knowing about this hasn't kept me from doing it repetitively throughout my life. But what happens is that you end up stifling your own growth and enabling somebody else's problematic or toxic behavior. Because what happens is that you just nurture all the deficits instead of really, really going into uncomfortable places to vanquish your own demons and really concentrate on your own journey. So, when I was on this path, the thing that occurred to me was that I needed to, after any relationship or any kind of heartbreak, that I needed to conquer a fear. So I have followed my fears to this point, walking very cautiously into them ever since. As you guys have witnessed, but if you're new to the podcast and listening to this episode as your first, you'll know that what I started with when I came to this revelation was Toastmasters. Now, this was not something that was new to me in theory or conceptually. My mother had recommended Toastmasters long before I actually went. Much like many things that take place in my life, there's usually someone that has tipped me off. I've had so many awesome, magnificent mentors and coaches in my experience. I'm truly grateful. But yeah, much like many coaches and people that I seek out for wisdom and advice, very rarely do I activate their advice as soon as I ask for it. I heard this from a client of mine recently, and I love it. You call people like me ask holes. A-S-K holes. Ask holes. Because we ask all these questions only to just witness and watch us spin our wheels for about 2 years before we finally get the light bulb moment and start doing the thing that you recommended years before. It's really, and I admit it, I'm an ask hole. But I do implement it eventually, and I want people to know that if they haven't been able to suffer through to when I finally do activate my life and get in a rhythm with what I need to do, that I'm very grateful for you for planting that seed of knowledge in me and allowing me the opportunity to better myself. That was really an act of love and kindness. But anyway, I started Toastmasters, and so I started confronting my fear of public speaking. Well, with any fear, I think what you end up understanding is that you have to learn about the things that you're afraid of in very progressional ways that don't traumatize you, but rather kind of debunk the fear. Because I think naturally as human beings, or honestly as maybe just human beings, but what we don't know about, we're automatically scared of. And typically with me, if I have no point of association whatsoever, I'm leery, especially if from the outside looking in, it just looks daunting. With public speaking, that's not the case, because prior to Toastmasters, I had many incidences where I attempted to get in front of people and present, and basically the only thing that would happen was my heart rate would go up, my voice would just quiver, like it was complete fight or flight mode that I experienced. I was just terrified. And up until Toastmasters, I could definitely have joined the crowd of people that would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. like that was literally me. And so I joined Toastmasters, and again, as an aside, like advertisement and plug, Toastmasters has been around forever. They're an international organization dedicated to leadership and communications. It works. It is very well formulated. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. They have completely invented it, and it works, and it rolls just fine if you work it. And I did. I think I did it for about 3 years. So anyway, I went from there to jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu was a fear of like physical confrontation. I wanted to know kind of where I was at there. But it was mostly because I've always really wanted to confront my physical being and better it. And I think I shared this on the podcast, but I'm just going to reiterate it again just for anybody who's new. I was born with an underdeveloped hip, and the first 9 months of my life, well, before that even, had it not been for medical technology and advancements in all that we have in science and medical care, I would have killed my mother and myself before I would have even seen the light of day. So when I tell everybody that, truly, I am just happy to be here, I do mean that. Like, so if one of the things that you've noted about me is my laughter and my general happiness, it comes completely from my soul, because I am so grateful. And since I was born, I've had something going on that others didn't, that was unusual about me. Now, I mean, we all have our past, we all have our struggles, but this is what mine was. And so physically, I've just never really experienced what other people experience with their physical bodies. It's always been something that I have approached with trepidation, because my adequacy in that area has really not been up to par with anyone else. And I can honestly say that jiu-jitsu didn't give me any kind of I don't know, peace about my abilities, but what it did do was unlock some things that I now know my body is capable of, that I never realized it could, and that I had already deemed just not something I was going to conquer ever. And one of them being able to do a pull-up for the first time in my life. Now, granted, I've lost that ability since, but it's a really cool thing to understand what muscles actually are required to do a pull-up. When you look at it, you always think it's just the arms. It's not just the arms. It's mostly your core, your abs. And during COVID, or not during COVID, that's later. During jiu-jitsu, I learned so much about how to fall, how to be humbled in ways that I had never been humbled. Learning about my body in a very neat way, where the deficits were, what things I could do to uplift myself. My core got wicked strong. It was really cool. And as anyone that does tattoo for a living or sits perpetually, I recommend jiu-jitsu highly because it strengthens your core quite a bit. Now, you can get compression of the spine if you're not careful to, elongate yourself, stretch, do reverse movements so that you keep your spine flexible and things like that. You can have a lot of compression. But as long as you do decompression exercises, and that's the thing, is that when you practice a martial arts like that, just like any arts, just like any practice, you're constantly submitting yourself to what's next. You're constantly, thinking, well, I did this, now I need to do that. And as the Gracies would say in jiu-jitsu, that's basically jiu-jitsu. I do this and you do this. I do this and you do that. And I do this and you do that. And it just keeps going on until somebody taps out. And, within jiu-jitsu, what tapped out for me was my knee. And then after my knee, COVID. COVID made everybody have to tap out. And then we were all put in a remarkable space that hit a global atmosphere and cognition. It brought about some good things, though, and I was grateful for that time in a lot of ways because, again, like I said, I've been pushed, and it was yet another understanding that I gained through that experience. I guess before I go too far, though, when I remember this conversation, and this I want to note before I move too far forward. This was either in the early days of the podcast or before it had actually started, which is, it's almost been 4 years now, so it's been happening for years. But I was on the phone with a friend. That's the only documentation that's there of it. Nobody knows this conversation took place except for him and I. And we're not even close anymore. We had to go our separate ways during and beyond COVID. It's probably best for both of us. But at the time, we were very much so close. And I believe us still to be very much so soulmated in the fact that we were meant to meet. We were meant to be in each other's lives for the time that we were. And at this particular point, we just, we always had these synchronicities of our life, like we were always going through the same kind of spiritual movings and challenges. It was very interesting, but we were pretty honed into similar experiences. And I remember this conversation because he was kind of rooting me on. And he could tell in my voice that I had, some pause about what I was going through. I was communicating that I felt a next phase in my life, something that was pulling me towards it. And I wasn't really exactly sure what, but that I needed to follow through with this. And of course, he's very positive, but he was like, what's your pause? And I said, if I'm being honest, I'm terrified. Because I know this sounds crazy, but I feel like this might kill me. I feel like this next phase might be the thing that I die doing. That might take me out. And it's both very exciting, but unbelievably scary. And he equivocated it to a fear of success, which, you know, if you put it simply, yes, but I think that's what happens when you do really care about something that you want to see come to fruition in your life, is that, you know, you want to do it well, and you care about it so much that the thought of failing at it at all is just, it's paralyzing. It makes you not want to even get started, because if you get started, then you hook people to this thing, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Then you have to be accountable. Then you have to be seen in a way that is, you know, very vulnerable. And yeah, I forget how our conversation ended, but he was very supportive, and he said, well, you know, you have to do it. And I said, yeah, I know. And I have wanted a podcast ever since I was introduced to the medium. I started out first with a podcast called Why I'm Single with my friend Amy D. That was a fun podcast, and I miss it a lot at times. I don't know if there's any episodes that could be accessed to this day. I'm pretty sure that they probably are still up. I'm not sure. But they were great, and if anybody wants to follow me before my time with Rico and what my dating life was before Rico, and you want to make yourself feel really good about, I don't know, my whole process of having a relationship is sort of train wreck. I don't claim any expertise whatsoever, but that was the point. I was the lamb to the slaughter, and Amy D was my clutch friend who basically like warned me when I got into murky water. I was like, get out now, get it out now. And we would just talk about it. We'd have people on the show that would share about relationships that they were in or they were struggling with, because don't you know, that whole thing just keeps reinventing itself every other second. And no matter how much technology that we introduce into it, we just can't seem to get it straight and have, I don't know, it's always a struggle, that. So I felt it was a good like starter podcast to kind of shake the, you know, get limber with, have something light, something I knew I could talk about with ease and be very vulnerable with, and something that I knew I was brazen enough to share. And Amy D always wanted to have a podcast. If she ever listens to my podcast, I want her to know that I'm sorry that I left that one. I felt like she was the main driver of it, and that I was kind of a side note. I felt like if there was to be a split in power, that she was 60 and I was 40. And if anybody were to default to anyone in the podcast, it was me defaulting to her. And so when I left, my hope is that I could keep coming back, and that we had started something that she would continue. But I don't think that she had any real joy about it without me, which is both flattering, because that means that she really valued that friendship, but also a little sad, because I didn't realize that in my leaving that the podcast would end, because it was such a cool thing, and she was really making it something awesome, and she was like the starting light for that entire theme, and she is so unbelievably funny, and it's got such a great voice. Wherever you are out there, Amy, I'm sure you're still where you were when we stopped the podcast, but I want you to know I love you, and I'm a fan of yours no matter what. But I went from that to having a guest spot at the time was a very regular space for me at Powerline Tattoo in Rhode Island. And I was on a guest spot, and I was talking about my apprentice and I was communicating some grief about not her per se, but the challenge of teaching another person and what kind of, just difficulties I was having at that time. And I do believe my friend Evan Olin was trying to see about this guy that was saying that he wanted to apprentice for him, but the dude wasn't really showing his best, at the jump. He was a really amazing artist, but he kind of didn't have the kind of stuff that Evan wanted to see. So we were in that space of communicating about it, and just the idea for the Apprenticeship Diaries popped into my mind because, when you start getting into tattooing, what you realize very quickly is that it's endless. And I know I've already communicated that on the show, but truly, it is endless. I mean, it's kind of an artistic wet dream because it is endless, and there is constant, submissions to the practice where light bulbs just go off constantly, and endless ways to scale how you can do it, what you can do, what you can explore, how you can explore it, what machines to use, what inks to use. I mean, just the list of things that you can invest your time in discovering about tattooing is just endless. But because of that, it doesn't really welcome a lot of opportunity for anyone, I do feel, no matter how long you've been in it, to really stand on any point of authority. And that was kind of my big problem with having a podcast centered around tattooing anyway, was because I didn't have any authority. I mean, I was just going through my first time as a mentor. I was just newly apprenticing somebody. I was bitching with my friends about what struggles I was having and what could I actually have to speak about. But something hit me the way it hit me in Toastmasters. Because in Toastmasters, they go through 10 different speeches that you have to give. And the last speech is an inspirational speech that you have to give. And that one was the one that really gummed me up. The last one was the worst for me to conceive of. Because again, it suggested that I have something of authority to give my audience. And it just didn't feel like a place that I really felt comfortable in. The person that kind of broke me out of that was my boss at the time, John. He was my first interview on this show. He said, Amy, come on now. Just write down what you've done in the past 5 years. I guarantee you, if you just write down what you've done for the past 5 years and look at it, you'll find an inspirational speech. And so I did what he said, because he seemed to think that I was being ridiculous, and he was baffled as to why I was having such issue coming up with this inspirational speech. Apparently he could see more in me than I could see in myself. So I did what he said. I followed his advice. I wrote down everything. I made like a timeline of everything that I could remember that I did within 5 years, and it really astonished me. I was kind of blown over by my own self. And I was able to give a speech where, I'll admit it, I kind of rushed my time, because that's part of Toastmasters too, is figuring out your time, which clearly I've never been able to figure out. I just come on here and talk, and I talk until I feel like there's nothing more to say. And I let my interviewees, my diary entry peeps do the same, because I feel like, it's best when you just let the conversation and the person run its course, and then if it hits that like natural progression where there's no more to say, well, then that's right, that's correct, that's natural, that seems authentic to me. Whereas, if you force it or you over structure it, It feels that way. And that was part of Toastmasters, though, is that they were grooming professional people, leaders, speakers. And if you go into a professional speaking space, you have time slots. You know, you have 5 minutes, you have 2 minutes, you have an hour, you have a half hour. So you've got to kind of know how to structure a speech within that time frame and really practice it. Well, I rushed that speech, but what I noticed, despite my rushing, was that my audience touched base with me afterwards and like kind of rushed me afterwards. And this had never really happened in Toastmasters. They were inspired. And what was more, like, I had a guy come up to me, a member, and say, wow, I really am amazed by all that you've done. I'd really like my daughter to meet you. And that was like such a wonderful feeling for somebody to think that they wanted to expose their child, their creation, to my experience, and thought that I was worthy of that kind of connection. So what I thought when I crafted the Apprenticeship Diaries is that this would be a way for me to speak about something that I guess I do have authority about, which is being very afraid, very uncomfortable, and very tech illiterate, and undeniably very uncool, and just kind of hanging out for all of you, and just seeing who picked it up, who liked it, and not caring about the rest, because it literally, like I said, it felt like I had to do it. Like it was such a necessary and obvious next step in confronting this fear that I have of truly failure and, getting up in front of people and being seen fully as me. Because, truth be told, I can't say that I fully know me. Like I know what has been, but that doesn't mean that I know what will be. And so now I've decided that it's very important for me to sit in this space of discomfort for a while. I don't know how long. But it has been told to me that, that you should assume some authority over the work that you do. And I was even uncomfortable with that, because I knew that one of my problems is that I tend to ramble. I tend to, overshare, talk over, dominate the conversation. And in general have a lot of, I don't know, like a lot of problems sharing and opening myself up to other people's suggestions. It's a very big problem of mine. I've been very stubborn. As the Bible would put it, my heart has been very hardened. And this image just came in my mind, so I wanted to share it because it's a good one. But, anything that's hard has so much more potential of breaking. Whereas something that's soft and squishy and flexible has the ability to have a lot of pressure on it without breaking. Now, it might get smushed, but it won't break. I guess it could pop, but that would probably take such a great force. So my heart has been very hardened for a long time. And I think that comes from a lot of things. I think it comes from just like an acute self-defensiveness. And, I like everybody, I just want to be a person that does great things with my life and makes an impact, makes a mark, however I can, and is generally, once all is said and done, seen as a good thing to have happened in the world. So if I'm having too many people tell me what to do, and I feel like it's not something that really is cued into what I'm doing. It's more so just a product of their own story or their own fears or their own ways. I get very defensive. So, delegating tasks has not been easy for me. Sharing has not been easy. I mean, honestly, if Amy D does listen to this, it's one of the reasons why I left that podcast as well. It's because I hit a space with her in one of our recordings where something happened that I didn't really feel like I had control over, and I had to kind of, in my mind anyway, felt like I had to bow to that, and that rubbed me the wrong way. And so instead of confessing to my friend and my co-host and my podcast buddy how I felt, I decided to walk away. And this is a big problem I have perpetually with my life. Sorry guys if you're getting a lot of background noise. My printer is making some weird noises right now, and I don't know what's going on. Interesting. Anyway, I'm sorry guys. Pardon the background noise. I almost want to unplug this thing. Is that it? No, that wasn't it. Crap's sake. There it goes. Sorry. brief hiccup there. So, but I always do this where I, instead of figuring it out, instead of standing my ground and being uncomfortable to be comfortable later, I just walk away. And, that has led to a lot of broken hearts. A lot. And I think that it has manifested a lot of unnecessary pain in my life. And if that's something that I can share with everybody is, don't try to do it all by yourself. I feel like I took people's advice to some extent, but there are times that I know that had I just listened to certain people, I probably would have recognized something sooner. I know we all have to come to our own realizations about things, but if at all you can soften your heart, truly listen, and even if it sounds like a very harsh critique or rubs you the wrong way, try to sit in that space long enough to kind of hear what's being said to you and touch back with that person and maybe, talk about it a little bit more so that you can, find a way forward instead of walking away. But that's typically what I tend to do. And honestly, everyone, it doesn't matter how long I have invested. I've had relationships, boyfriends of mine, and the longest was 8 years. I ended an 8-year relationship because I just felt like it was never going to get better. And I felt like the dynamic was too off base from what it needed to be for it to be repaired and for anything to happen. Now, whether I was right or I was wrong, simple fact of the matter is that I was the one that ended it and cut the cord. And it really didn't matter how much time. So, moving ahead, to preserve time, I've been doing the same thing, I guess. I mean, after that relationship, I started Toastmasters, the 8-year one. So I guess that was the catalyst for saving time, because I didn't want to waste another 8 years of my life on the same type of relationship. So then I started walking in my fears, and I guess that's what's led me to here. And it's been quite a while since then. So I have learned and come leaps and bounds from that. But this is a new step into a fear that I don't know where it's going to go, but it's pretty cool. And I feel like I need to document this with everybody because I feel like something's going to be unlocked, both within me, this podcast, the listeners. And I feel like this might be a really cool spark to put out in the world. And by no means is it original. Well, maybe it's the most original. I don't know. But essentially, I don't feel like I'm walking alone anymore because recently, before this year began, I started going to church. Now, I've had podcasts that outlined why I started going to church, so that I will allow for people to revisit. There's many reasons, and I think that I've spoken about them pretty well as to why I started going to church. But I haven't spoken much about this as yet. And I feel like I need to because it's unlocked some really beautiful things within me and given me, I think, that extra bit of courage that I needed, because now I don't feel like I'm walking alone. I feel like I'm walking with God. And I know that sounds haughty, but again, like I said before, I need to step into a space of authority on some level. And this authority that I'm speaking of will only be my experience as I submit myself to being a student of God and a student of the Word. I was wanting, during all of COVID, when I knew I should be sharpening skills and I should be gaining more skills, I wanted something to learn. Like, I really wanted to be a student again, but I didn't know what. And, I sat, and it was so uncomfortable, guys. It was so freaking uncomfortable because a thing that makes me, I think, really uncomfortable is just not having an answer to that question, what next, what to do. So I did do a lot of things. I never stopped doing things, but whether or not they were the right thing or the wrong thing, who knows? They were just, I was just following what I knew until I hit something that felt right. Like I was just waiting until something occurred to me. And what occurred to me during COVID and during all this time was that there was a lot of people in my life that really, really loved me and that really, really had my back, because I think if anything, we kind of understood that during COVID is who is in your corner. And, the most amazing thing was this new experience that I had with my parents, from a place of kind of going off and out from them, becoming a professional in my own respect, and then kind of being forced to return to them in some ways, and then just finding open arms, this beautiful embracing. And I can tell you that in a lot of ways, I didn't deserve it. I mean, if we're going biblically back, I definitely have waged war with the image of my family and my parents, enough that maybe I might have even back in the day gotten stoned to death. Because you're not supposed to wage war or speak against your parents. And, I've been forgiven by them, so I guess that's all right moving forward. But, I did do a lot of things that, I think projected a false image of them, or at the very least was just my experience. And it really wasn't the truth. The truth is that they've always loved me very, very, very much. And despite it being really hard, did what they felt was right. And I know that's not easy, but the ramifications of that, they're just evident now. Like the love that I have, the dedication I have to them, and wanting very much so to know them now. And so that was the first thing, like just kind of touching base with my creation, these two people that brought me physically into the world, I just felt like I owed it to them to get to know them. It became a thing where I stopped caring about what they saw in me. It really was irrelevant, because who am I to influence them? They made me, like, I'm not supposed to influence them. I do think I'm their karma in some ways. I do think I do influence them, but I'm meant to be led by them and shepherded by them. And it's not really important for me to be seen by them. It's meant for me to listen and to take away and to soak up as much as I can get out of them while I still have the time to get it. And so that's, that's the biggest reason that kind of brought me into the church. It's a long, windy road, but this specific church. And then from that point, every single week, I swear to you guys, there has been something that has occurred during the course of a week since I started attending church every Sunday that has posed a challenge to my life, and that is answered and kind of resolved once I go to church. It's either resolved before church, or it validates something about how I acted in response to the challenge that church then solidified, or just like all of it's there. All of it's there in the freaking Bible. It's so crazy when you start like really submitting yourself to it. And so now, at this particular point in my journey, I'm becoming a member of the church, which, has its own things. You really have to be an arbiter of the church. You have to stand behind the statutes of the church. My church, by the way, if anybody's interested and wants to reach out to me to see about, maybe attending or checking us out, it's Cornerstone Evangelical Free Church. And it's really cool. I love going there, and I have loved every single experience, so much so that I spend like from 7:30 a.m. till sometimes 4 p.m. in the afternoon, dedicated to this place and to this practice on Sundays. I get up at 7:30. It takes me an hour to get there. We have Bible study at 9:30. We have worship and service at 10:40, and then we have fellowship that follows that. Fellowship leads all the way up until 1:30. 1:30 is when I have my membership classes now, and it's this active study of the Word. And I really think that it is curing all of the things that I had going on with me that were really, really, really impinging and infringing on my progress. And during this week, it occurred to me that I should go on the podcast solo from now on, at least for a little while, and stand as a point of authority and at the very least tell you guys about my week and tell you guys about what I learned in church, and spread a little bit of the message of what I've experienced. And if anything, this is a moving diary. This is an open book diary for people to listen to and take away what you want. So if it gets in a place where you don't enjoy it anymore, my hope is that you'll just walk away and go find something that feeds your soul better. And my hope is that the more my soul is fed and the more my light bulbs go off, it'll be like wildfire, man, and it'll just catch on to all of you. So I really, really hope that. And something that I read today, or that we actually were observant of today in the Bible And I just want to read this for you guys because I think it's really powerful. It's Revelations 22:8-9. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. Worship God. And just to kind of distill that, at least that I heard it, and this is why I say I don't feel like now I'm standing up here alone. I feel like I'm standing and walking with God because everything that I am and have done has been given to me from a force outside of me. Like I started at the beginning of this, had it not been for medical science, I would not be here. And what brought about medical science, and what kind of human spark has brought us to this point. I mean, glory be to God. All my gifts come from that. I know that truly now. And, I've even told people, and if you're a client of mine, you might have even heard me say this spoken out loud, but I have told many people that I've been exposed to that when I create art, I call it my God sense, because it's like that part in Last Samurai when the guy is teaching him how to fight with a sword, and he's like, no mind, too many mind, no mind. And that's where I go. It's purely this space that I let something flow through me, and I don't even know what. And sometimes I tap into stuff that my clients look at it and they're like, how did you know? Like, how did you know to do that? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I was led there. I was led there by something. It just made sense to me. I can't tell you what it was. But, for the longest time, I assumed that pride. I assumed that favor. And that's not me. I didn't do that. Something used me to produce that. And it was given to me so that I could give it to the world. And so that's kind of what I want to do now, is I want to learn and I want to digest, and I want to speak from this place now that I have given this up to something higher and understood that it all comes from something higher. And I can tell you guys this much, the codependency has been amazing since this. Because now when I see somebody suffering and I can recognize it, I don't feel the need to fix it. There's nothing to fix. I can truly walk away and say something simple like, I'll pray for you. And that's not lacking in action. That's doing something. Praying for somebody is very, very powerful. It's deep. It's sometimes the only thing you can do. In fact, many times it's the only thing you can do. Like I said at the top, codependency is something where you're basically just building up your own ego and it's false. It's false ego, because you don't even know your own potentials. You're stifling your own potential while you're enabling another person to basically stay the same. It's just awful. It's just complete stagnation. And I just have always kept hitting that wall. I've always hit that wall, and my heart, I even tattooed a broken heart on me when COVID hit in 2020. I got a Dan Kubin machine, which is awesome, by the way. All of his machines are Dan Kubin. Check him out. His machines are rad. He's pretty dope too. Like, if you need to contact him individually, he'll chat you up about his machines. It's a very great machine creator. But I wanted to use his machines, and to come full circle, the friend that I had my initial conversation with, that intimate phone call with, where I said, I feel like this might kill me. Like, this is so overwhelming, an urge and something that I need to actually invest in, that it might kill me. That friend, that was the day that our relationship dissolved into what it is now, where we had to walk away from each other. And that was it. That was the final straw that caused me to want to reflect on my broken heart. And what I also heard today, or at least processed today, I'm not sure if I heard it, so I'm not going to say that, but it was a thought, is that all of our hearts are broken. All of them are. We are very flawed out the gate. And we're destined to be flawed as we move through this world. And, the only thing that can heal us is when we agree, I think, to submit ourselves to something higher, something that can help us, that can get us through, that can help heal. And only go to that for the healing. Only go to that for the healing. I mean, even my knee, I asked for prayers last week, and I asked initially for them to be given for my knee, which was it felt awful at the time because everybody had such great prayers, and they were really like I'm not suffering as much as you're suffering kind of thing, and probably I shouldn't talk about my stupid knee because your problems seem way worse than mine. But I did. I mentioned my knee because I was truly low, and I've been grappling with the fact that I've lost my ability to do a pull-up. My body has gone into a state of stagnation. The pain in my knee has become so much more than what is bearable to me. And I've invested again, you've heard it on the podcast now a little bit, but my friend John Simmons, he's an acupuncturist. I've returned to him. I'm probably going to go to my other acupuncturist too. His name is Luke. And if anybody's interested in either of those gentlemen, I can give you their information. But I've just been investing back into healing myself again. And at my last, not this Sunday, obviously, because this is the Sunday, but I had asked for prayers, and they were about my knee. And as I was asking, I could tell that I was, again, walking into this fear and this known thing that I knew that I was just really wanting some kind of miracle pill for, to be honest with you guys, because I do believe that we can heal ourselves. I do believe that we can do that. And, but anyway, when I was at church last weekend, one of our congregants, she said, I have this name for you, a really good chiropractor. Now, I haven't visited this chiropractor yet, but when I do, I'll report and I'll let you guys know how it's going. And because I'm bringing up my knee and I'm going solo on this, I'm going to share with you guys this journey because I really want to keep healing myself. And I think something amazing can be unlocked within all of this if I stop trying to make something happen that I really want to have happen, but that is not in alignment with what I should prioritize right now, which is, quite frankly, I'm weak, I'm in pain, and I'm suffering from a broken heart, and I'm at this low point where I feel like I need to sit in this space of discomfort, really, really cut a lot of fat out. And not that any of the people that I've interviewed has been extraneous. And like I said, I plan on honoring all of the pre-recordings that I've done and really focusing on that, releasing them. But while I'm doing that, dispersing regular touch bases, touch-ins with me, and kind of sharing where I'm at, because I really want to be a testimony of this. I think this could be really cool. And I get to highlight so many cool professionals that have already helped me along this journey, including my church. And again, God, like I can testify to my experience with God. And I think that this is really important. So within this chiropractor, the congregant told me, you can heal yourself. It takes, investing. So what I realized within this prayer was like, well, I believe you. I do believe that. I hope you guys can understand. I was born with an underdeveloped hip. I've suffered pains that other kids my age have never suffered. I've never really felt or understood what it feels like to have a full deck when it comes to physicality. I have had a lot of issues, and I'm tired. Like, I'm really tired. And I just feel like a big fat mess, and literally fat because I gained back the 20 pounds I had lost investing in jiu-jitsu. And so that felt defeating and everything. So I have my weight to get back. I have my rhythm and exercising to get back. And I have this knee that I have to tackle. And I do want to go to every realm possible before I consider a knee replacement. So probably going to connect with this chiropractor. Going to keep seeing my friend John, who's been remarkable. And I'm probably going to reconnect with Brenda in Annapolis, who was the physical therapist that I was seeing before COVID, because I really enjoyed her. And I think that if I really buckle down and go see her regularly, I'm going to have results with this knee, and I need to do it. So, and the biggest thing that I want to share, prayers answered. After that Sunday, after I'd asked the people that I was worshiping with to please pray for my willpower to do the things that I need to do. Please. I had the opportunity to tattoo my friend John, my acupuncturist. And then in that same week, we set up a time. We work a trade for services. We were able to set up a time where he was able to work on me. And I was seen by him on Wednesday. And when I went to be seen by him on Wednesday, I confessed to him. I was like, I confessed on Monday, if I'm being clear. Monday is when I confessed. And I said, I prayed this Sunday for healing of my knee. I need help. I'm very low and I'm in a lot of pain. And this has been persistent, and I'm getting to a point where I need to do something. I really need to do something. And so John, he was like, he has this infrared, I believe is what it is. It's a light. He has a light that basically spawns, I don't want to say it's infrared because I'm not sure, but it's a light that spawns cellular regeneration and really helps activate your body's natural healing process. So he said to me on Monday, he's like, when I see you Wednesday or when I see you next, we'll really concentrate on your knee. We'll get you up and going. And he's already been so helpful. He has an elixir that he gave me that promotes, hormonal rebalancing. It's great for your hair, your nails, your skin, everything. All these things, guys, I have seen remarkable differences in. It's just like, just wonderful. So he went in on my knee on Wednesday, and I will say this, at least as it's going these days for me when I get acupuncture for him, it kind of cashes my whole day. Like, I always have a list of things that I want to get to on a day that I see John, but invariably probably the most thing that I'm going to be able to do is feed myself, maybe do some laundry, and then sleep. Because I think what happens is he activates my body so much in ways that it's just not used to going in, and brings attention to these blockages that I have in my body, that when he pokes at them and he brings, attention to these areas, it just uses up everything that I have in me to fix it. And I want to give you guys a visual. I mean, it may or may not be great, but I was sitting on his table Wednesday, and this was something that was occurring to me as I was sitting under this light, and as I had all these needles in me, and this, I usually like kind of check out. Like he brings me to like almost sleep, but it's really weird. It's like I don't know. Sorry for all the pauses, guys, but it's been hard to articulate a lot of this stuff. But I have persistently, and this is when I knew that the pain was getting really bad, is that before I started seeing John, I was YouTubing videos of people taking off water from the knee. So basically what they do is they stick a syringe, very big needle. I think the gauge is like 18 gauge, which is big for a syringe. And they pull all this fluid off of your knee. And in my mind, I had been thinking just like, I know there's a bunch of shit just around this knee. I know it. Like, I know there's just all this stuff around my knee. Like, if I could just get it out. It's like, popping a pimple, like just letch it from, of all this crap. And so I started fantasizing about it. Like, if only I could just get a huge syringe and pull out all this liquid on my knee, or just like, and I remember when I went to see an orthopedic doctor about it, they had told me that I had water on the knee, and that I actually had a cyst behind my knee that was limiting my mobility, and that they used to remove that stuff, but what they found is that it was such a temporary fix that they would just come right back, because what it is your body kind of really sending all reinforcements to that area and keeping you from overexerting yourself. So, the cyst is to keep me from bending and giving me pain, to tell me to, like, you're going to have to stop doing some things. You're really going to have to stop doing some things. But I was starting to fantasize about sticking needles in my knee and doing crazy crap. So when I was on John's table, I was thinking about that at first, like, oh, it'd be so nice just to suck all that liquid out of my knee. But then a thought occurred to me, and it came out of nowhere, and it was like, no. If you dream about sucking this liquid out of your knee, then what you are actually activating is a future where you will have liquid to suck out of your knee. Stop picturing that. Quit picturing that. You are indulging this reality that you do not want. So stop indulging that. Start thinking about yourself doing things that you want to do again, like sit cross-legged, like doing a squat without feeling like I'm gonna break, like sitting in child's pose which is like one of my favorite yoga positions, child pose, but I can't do it right now, people. I can't. I can't sit on my knees. I can't kneel on my knees. And while I was at worship last week, and when I was asking for prayers, I said, well, I know that I deserve this. And my, the lady that was giving me chiropractic suggestions, she's like, oh, no. I said, no, I did. I hardened my heart. I wouldn't listen to anybody. I wouldn't bow or kneel to anyone or anything, not even the highest. I felt it was all on me. And now that I am ready to kneel, ready to serve and to worship and to, put myself before this, I can't. It hurts so much. And all I want to do is be able to be on my knees so that I can pray and so that I can serve. And so I guess what I would ask from all of you is, to let me know what you think of this. That would be great. I will accept, just so you know, if I'm not going to be seeking out any more interviews and people to interview, but if you seek me out, I'll definitely have you on the show, because I feel like that's you're being called to it, and I definitely want to, I want to serve, and if this is a platform that I have created, it is a platform that I've created where I can serve. I can serve you. I can put out messages and feelers. I have a platform now to communicate to the world, and I want to do that. But I'm not going to seek people anymore, because honestly, it was an excuse in the beginning to do that. It allowed for the focus not to be on me, and it allowed me to explore this podcast space and this medium and this concept that was safe, and it was very necessary, but it's reached a point where I know who to go to, and it's not found on this earth, and I'm ready to stand as a point of authority, and I'm ready to be seen and to be judged, and I'm hoping that I will have a testimony at the end of this that will be so miraculous. And if you keep listening, that you'll be able to go on it with me, and hopefully maybe it'll unlock some greatness or something that will give more hope to somebody else. One more thing about serving. It breaks my heart. I mean, apart from all the other things that have broken my heart in this podcast, but it really, really breaks my heart today what's happening in all forms of service. It's astounding. Just yesterday, I went to Walmart, and I know Walmart, whatever, but, Walmart has its charm, and it has its reason, and it was a place that was convenient for me to shop for the things that I needed. So I went, and I had the ability to do a self-checkout, but I really don't like self-checkout. I mean, I'm okay with it at this point, just because I'm whatever, especially in places where they have a full staff of people standing around, but there's no human-powered lane to check out in. It's all self-checkout, and they're just standing there watching you do it. It's the most infuriating thing. I mean, you really don't have any choice. But I had a choice at Walmart, and so I was like, I'm not in a hurry, so let's have a human interaction. This is great, and I have time. Ladies and gentlemen, this was really, honestly, the most unbelievable test of my patience and will, and everything. It's going to be horrible for me to grow older because if I'm already feeling this way now, it's not going to get better. I mean, I'm going to pray to God about it, but there is zero acknowledgement of me. The person working the cashier did not acknowledge me at all. She simply just started ringing up my items. And more than that, stopped without even saying a word to go assist another cashier. Now, whilst that's fine to go assist another cashier, didn't even think to like say, oh, excuse me, honey, he needs me over there. I'll be right back. Nothing. Nothing. And not only that, but it was like the slowest checkout experience that I think I've ever had in my life. And barely an acknowledgement by the end. I think that she could kind of feel like my astonishment of the whole thing by the end, and she followed up with a thank you and handed me my receipt. But that was it. And I was just amazed. I was amazed in my heart. Oh, my heart. I was so sad because, you know, guys, here's the deal. I have worked jobs that were not my dream job. I've never worked for Walmart, but I have worked jobs that weren't the pinnacle of what I wanted to do. But when I did it well. I did it happily. And I did it to the best of my ability. Because in my mind, what it meant about me was that I was willing to learn and submit myself fully to that time and that experience and get the most out of it as humanly possible. And if I had to experience those things, which in all of these cases, the reasons why I was not pursuing or in the job that I wanted at the time was probably a lack of knowledge or access. I didn't have the qualifications to access it at that point. So I was stuck, and I was stuck with a job that I needed to be in. The same thing with school. If I had to go to school, why not just figure out how to get the most out of this, right? But it's baffling to me that people spend their times and their days like this, where they don't take every opportunity to just be happy and experience the utmost of what you can experience with another human being and spread joy. It's crazy to me. I grew up in the service industry, folks. I love serving. And this is something that I heard from Dennis Prager because I've been listening to his masterclass series that he talks about, you know, what it is if we lose God in our society. And he has a specific section that is about happiness and how it is your duty to be happy. It is an obligation of yours. And I have to agree with him. Because in the service industry, that was something I was taught. You bench everything else, you go in, and you fake it until you make it. You put on a smile, and you make it be about doing a good job. Be present in the time that you are in, fully, and meet that person, and be with that person, and hear that person. Do that. And you know what would happen? Is that more often than not, the crap that I came into the day with wouldn't be that bad anymore, because what would happen is I'd shift the paradigm. By my smiling and my happiness, despite however false it might have been at the time, it invoked, like I said, about what I hope to be the testimony of this podcast in the future to come. Like wildfire, it just changed the energy for everybody else. Everybody was happy and smiling by the time all was said and done. I had a great day. And there was more positive to take away than the initial crap that I started out with. So you owe it to yourself and you owe it to other people to be happy. And this is one last thing. And this kind of goes towards what Dennis Prager had said, but whoever says it, this whole like guilt by association thing. I mean, I hope people can just take away what serves them and leave the rest and forget about who said it first, because quite frankly, we're all human and we're all flawed. And this whole like, well, he said this and he did this and he's this and it just is so again, hardening of hearts, robbing yourself of the opportunity to grow and learn. But anyway, this is what Dennis Prager said, and I really appreciated this. An advertisement for atheism is very rarely delivered by an atheist. The biggest and best advertisement for atheism is an unhappy follower of faith. Because what that shows people is that your faith isn't helping you. It isn't serving you, and it isn't bringing a peace and a sense of comfort and courage to you that makes you happy and able to let things flow through you, or at the very least let your heart get squeezed and not broken. That's what you should exude, is happiness. And especially if you're a person of faith, because if your faith can't give you the kind of peace of mind that in my mind it should, then it isn't working, and it certainly will not do anything for the faith itself. All you're going to do is be a testimony of something that nobody wants to be a part of, because they can see in your face that you're not happy. So be happy, and be happy serving others. It's a very amazing place to be, and I don't care what you're doing. It's an awesome place to be. It's a very powerful place to be, and it's a place of immense, immense value. Do not underscore that. Get some heart back, people. And, start having some joy about your place in life, and give yourself the ability to, just be light again. And with that, diary listeners, I will be saying lots of prayers for all of you, but as I close this, I want all of you to know the immense amount of love that I have for all of you. I am so grateful for all of you. But, for the people that have been with me since day one, I hope you know what kind of just amazing people you are to me. Thank you for following this podcast this far, and my hopes is that we all get to move forward into a much brighter, much happier, much more amazing future, and we all have testimonies and stories to tell of what we were doing when. So thank you, diary listeners, and have a great week. God bless.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is the_apprenticeship_diaries. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.